Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission for February 20th, 2026. It's what, the 19th?
The 19th.
The 18th. I never get the day right. I'm lucky I made it to the meeting. All right. So tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and online. Commissioners, Planning Department staff, and members of the public are attending in the Wheat Ridge City Hall and by way of Zoom. If you would like to make any comments, if you wish to make any comments by participating virtually, you may do that through either Zoom or calling in. A Zoom meeting link and dial information can be found on wheatridgespeaks.org. In addition to being online via Zoom, we are also broadcasting this meeting on Channel 8 and wheatridgespeaks.org. And when it is time for public comment, and there will be 3 opportunities tonight, those who wish to comment on our Zoom connection, you can use the raise your hand button. If you do not plan to speak, we encourage you to watch on Channel 8. May I get a roll call of the members?
Anna Sparks,
Present.
Christine Disney,
Present.
Daniel Gravy,
Here.
Michael Moore,
Here.
Sierra Quiones,
Here.
and Krista Hollab is absent tonight.
Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is approving the order of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any changes? Seeing none, the agenda will stand as published. Next, we will vote to approve the minutes from the last meeting of December 18th, 2025. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Commissioners, please vote.
Motion approved 5-0.
We'll now open the general interest public forum. This is a time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on the agenda. If you plan to speak for an item that is on the agenda, we'll wait until then. Is there anybody in chambers that wishes to speak? Is there anybody online?
No.
Okay, then I will close the public forum. And tonight we have a hearing on 3 items. And the first one, I will call on Commissioner Sparks to introduce that one.
Thank you, Vice Chair. A request by Dave & Buster's for approval of a specific development plan for a 31,281 square foot Dave & Buster's entertainment use on a property zone planned mixed use development, PMUD, and located at 3800 Clear Creek Drive.
And for the record, please note that this is SDP-25-2. All right. Is there a staff presentation? Okay.
All right, good. Good evening. My name is Gianna Easley, and I am the planning manager for the city, and I am presenting this item tonight on behalf of Stephanie Stevens, the case manager on the project. This is case number SDP 25-2, which is a request for approval of a specific development plan for a Dave & Buster's entertainment use located at 3800 Clear Creek Drive in the Clear Creek Crossing mixed-use development. And at this time, I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, and this digital presentation. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, the subject site is outlined in red. An SDP was recently approved for a Bank of America to the northeast of the subject site, and an SDP is under review for a Bird Call restaurant to the northwest. Also to the northwest, Crossing Drive infrastructure plans were recently approved to create an enhanced roadway and pedestrian corridor, or PASEO, connecting from 40th Avenue to Clear Creek Drive, as well as a private drive on the north side to serve the proposed development and adjacent users, all of which are currently under construction. A Home 2 hotel is currently under construction just west of Crossing Drive at the northeast corner of 40th Avenue and Clear Creek Drive. A subdivision plat is under review to split the Dave & Buster's lot into 2 lots. The replatting will result in 1 remaining vacant site within Block 2 south of the subject site, which is reserved for a restaurant or retail user. The subject site is located within the Clear Creek Crossing planned mixed-use development zoning, which is shown in green on the map, and is located within Planning Area 3, also known as the Vineyard District, denoting this area as a commercial subdistrict within the development. The site is surrounded by the same Clear Creek Crossing mixed-use zoning. This request for a specific development plan, or SDP, approval is a second step in a 2-part approval process pertaining to planned developments. The first step occurred in 2018 when the Planning Commission and the City Council approved the Clear Creek Crossing Planned Mixed-Use Outline Development Plan, or ODP, which establishes the zoning. The zone change also included approval of a vision book that establishes the intended design and architectural themes and materials, as well as a design pattern book that includes a more substantive development regulations. An SDP for each building, lot, or phase is required as a second step, which is where we are now. Several SDPs have already been approved at Clear Creek Crossing, including Bank of America, the Lookout Restaurant Corridor, Bonfire Burritos, Primrose School, Home 2 Suites Hotel, Outlook Apartments Phases 1 and 2, Intermountain Health Lutheran Hospital Campus, Hampton Inn Hotel, Lifetime Fitness Facility, Foothills Credit Union, Maverick, previously Come and Go Gas Station, and Dutch Brothers Coffee Shop. The applicant is requesting to build a 31,281 square foot Dave & Buster's entertainment establishment. Entertainment uses are permitted in Planning Area 3, or the Vineyard District of Clear Creek Crossing, which includes the subject site. I'll walk through the proposed conditions in more detail in the next few slides, but the site also takes into consideration adequate vehicular access, planning area connectivity, and pedestrian connections. Okay, so starting with access, the subject, approximately 4.5 acre Dave & Buster's site is shown with a star on the screen. 2 points of vehicular access are provided from the north and south property drives that stem from Crossing Drive and Clear Creek Drive. Crossing Drive will feed into a signalized intersections and will extend southwest across Clear Creek Drive to connect to the Lookout Restaurant Corridor, currently under construction. Pedestrian connections are proposed to the northwest and south to tie into surrounding streets and planning areas. Note that the Bird Call restaurant, which is slated to go to the site just north of this one, is going through a corporate reorganization, and this project is currently on hold, yet no matter the case, will be subject to holding the circulation network shown here. On this slide, you can see an excerpt of the SDP with north shown on the left. So note that this diagram is rotated. North is to the left. The 31,000 square foot building is tucked along the east side of the site adjacent to Interstate 70, shown at the top of the screen. The SDP reflects 284 parking spaces. The parking is situated primarily to the west and south and screened from adjacent streets by landscaping. The parking area includes sidewalks shown with the blue lines and arrows on this slide, allowing pedestrian access from the site to the private street, public streets, and signalized intersections. The design pattern book establishes setback and building orientation requirements specific to each development district within Clear Creek Crossing. For Planning Area 3 within the Vineyard District, there is a build-to requirement along Clear Creek Drive where either 50% of the buildings along the street or a landscape wall must be located within 0 to 50 feet of the property line. The applicant has elected to provide an enhanced landscape wall with plantings along Clear Creek Drive to maximize parking. The proposed building orientation will result in high visibility from the highway, easy access into the site via Crossing Drive connecting to the two signalized intersections nearby, and enhanced pedestrian connections to the surrounding uses. The project meets the minimum requirement for 20% of the gross lot to be landscaped by utilizing perimeter landscaping, parking lot landscaping islands, streetscape trees, and entry plaza and planting beds near the building with a variety of trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses, and perennials. Enhancements to the private drive are proposed along the north side of the site to include detached sidewalk and landscaping. The project is meeting the minimum planting requirements. The design pattern book includes a plaza requirement for Planning Area 3 with a minimum of 5,000 square feet of plaza required in this sub-district. The Home 2 Hotel fulfilled this requirement. However, Dave & Buster's has elected to add an entry plaza to further accentuate the space in a location supported by the design pattern book, which has been designed to complement other plaza spaces throughout the development. This is the view of from the north at the main entry coming from Crossing Drive, highlighting the entry storefront and corner feature. The architectural style is driven by the Clear Creek Crossing Design Pattern Book and Vision Book, which call for a modern agrarian aesthetic that blends traditional agrarian forms and materials with a modern feel. It also requires strong attention be paid to the pedestrian realm. The building is proposed to be a single-story, 37 feet tall, and the architecture is comprised of primarily stone, metal, fiber cement, and glazing, or windows. It includes a stone base element with a glass storefront and metal awnings placed at varying heights that accentuate the base and enhance the pedestrian realm. It incorporates corner identifying features that create visual interest along with metal and wood features that emulate the look and feel of raw materials and tie into the modern agrarian theme. The nature of the business inherently restricts the amount of natural light that can be introduced into the interior space. So the applicant has had to be creative in the design of the exterior to include sufficient glazing that acts as transparency and meets the requirements of the design pattern book. This is the east and south elevation, which will primarily be visible along I-70 and south from Crossing Drive. The east and south elevations incorporate similar enhancements to improve the view from the highway and Southern Drive, even though these are technically back-of-house areas. The materials carry over to all sides of the building, resulting in four-sided architecture. Since Wheat Ridge is served by special districts, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and others, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive any objections from outside agencies, and coordination with these districts is ongoing. Civil construction documents are also under review. A recommended condition of approval has been added to denote that minor changes may be required to coordinate this development with surrounding infrastructure improvements being constructed by the master developer and to match civils and plat with the approved SDP. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days and letters were sent out to property owners and occupants within a 1,000-foot radius of the site, and the project was posted to Wheat Ridge Speaks. 2 comments were received on Wheat Ridge Speaks related to traffic concerns and claims that Dave & Buster's is commercialized and doesn't seem to fit the community culture of Clear Creek Crossing. In terms of traffic, the traffic report provided shows Dave & Buster's to be well under the levels anticipated when the original traffic study was conducted in 2008, which anticipated the potential for a large format retailer Walmart, and a movie theater that did not come to fruition. The master developer, in connection with the hospital, will additionally be responsible for reanalyzing the traffic once full build-out is reached to ensure traffic needs are met, which could mean adjustments to signal timing, turn lanes, etc. From a community perspective, we'll let the applicant respond as well, but we've received many informal comments indicating excitement for the use that will bring all ages to the development. We'll also visit other commercial uses and park space that Clear Creek Crossing has to offer and enhance the community vibe. Dave & Buster's has been a good neighbor throughout the process and has been willing to change their design to fit into the Clear Creek Crossing community, including more pedestrian and vehicular connections, bike connections, the plaza, architecture that fits, etc. Oh,
Excuse me.
One more slide.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. With that, staff finds that the SDB is consistent with the ODP and is in compliance with all standards set forth in the ODP, Clear Creek Crossing Design Pattern Book, and City Code. The SDP is consistent with the purpose of a planned development, and all agencies can serve the property. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval with the condition as listed in the staff report. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
The applicant does not have a presentation, but we do have folks here in the room, including the master developer, some of the site consultants, and as well as the developer team. And then we've got a couple of people on Zoom as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, okay, I will open this hearing to public testimony. If there is someone in the chambers that would like to speak on this, other than the applicant, please come forward. State your name. Nope, no one. All right, is anybody on Zoom?
There could be one person on Zoom. If you are wanting to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand. Nobody at this time.
All right, I will now close the public testimony. Any further wrap up from staff or applicant? No? Okay. I'll now open to questions from commissioners. Commissioner Sparks, do you have any questions?
Yes, I was curious, they delineated different parking spaces and there was quite a few delineated as EV. I wanted to kind of know what that meant for parking spaces.
Do you want to come and address that?
Please.
Just state your name.
My name is Cody Ofchus. I live at 645 Old Midland Spur in Glenwood Springs. I work for Kimmy Wong, the civil engineer on the project. The
Sorry,
different
can you spell your last name, please?
OFFCHISS.
And your address again?
645 Old Midland Spur in Glenwood Springs.
Thank you.
The different levels of EV parking are different levels of infrastructure that get installed. So we're installing 6 right off the bat, and then we're laying future groundwork for more parking in the future, and that's consistent with Wheat Ridge Code.
Is that like electrical hookups or what is the envisioning?
It is space on the electrical panel and then running the conduit for it. So when it's elected to be installed in the future, it's easier to install those.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Moore.
Currently, no questions at this time.
Commissioner Gravy.
Thank you. Jana, a couple of quick questions maybe for you. There was part of the presentation, and I may have not been paying attention for a moment, but where you mentioned something about the community culture of the Clear Creek Crossing development. Can you find that sentence or two in your presentation and reread that part for me?
Sure. Okay, so this stemmed from two comments that we received. Okay. And so what I stated was, from a community perspective, we'll let the applicant respond as well, but we've been receiving many informal comments indicating excitement for a use that will bring all ages to the development, who will also visit the other commercial uses and park space that Clear Creek Crossing has to offer and enhance the community vibe. Dave & Buster's has been a good neighbor through the process and has been willing to change their design to fit into the Clear Creek community, including more pedestrian and vehicular connections, bike connections and amenities, architecture that fits in plaza space, et cetera.
Okay, I thought it was before that there was mention in it too, but maybe I misunderstood.
It was just a simple restatement of the two comments
Yeah,
that we had
no, I thought it was
received.
before that part. There was another mention of it, but I could be taking us off course. I have another question that you might be able to answer though. The ODP was 2018. Is it pretty standard for that period of time for between, and I'm just still refreshing my memory on this process, but from ODP to SDP, like this length of time, is that pretty standard?
Yes, for a development of this size, for it to develop out typically takes 5, 10 plus years. So it's on track.
Okay. And our packet has a reference to the size of the site being 4.57 acres. Is that including or excluding the future pad site that you've got on this slide here?
That would be after the replat, and this would be the remaining lot size.
Okay. And then on your presentation, when you referenced the comments that were received, it seemed that the comments that I read on Wheat Ridge Speaks would be characterized differently than what you just restated to me. And so were you referencing the comments that we received or just informal things that you had been hearing prior to that?
I first referenced the two comments that you hopefully viewed on Wheat Ridge Speaks, and then we've received a number of informal comments commenting about how excited people are for the development.
Gotcha. But the two on Wheat Ridge Speaks, both to my memory, weren't quite as excited about the development.
No, I have them if you'd like me to read them into the record.
Oh, I mean, I read them, so I was just making sure I understood your presentation on that point correctly.
Yeah.
I think for now, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Quinones.
I have no questions.
I have one question, and this is just minor. There is a reference to the landscaping, and it says the project is providing more plantings than required, but due to utility conflicts, primarily along the major roadways, there are limited areas. So trees could not be planted. Is that because of, I wouldn't think it would be overhead power lines. Is it just because there's sidewalks and,
There would be underground utilities. For instance, you cannot plant trees over water or sewer lines,
okay,
things like that.
thank you. That's all I have. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will introduce a motion.
I can go ahead and recommend a motion, please. I move to approve case number SDP 25-2, a request for approval of a specific development plan for a Dave & Buster's entertainment use on property zone planned mixed use development and located at 3800 Clear Creek Drive for the following reasons. 1, the specific development plan is consistent with the purpose of a planned development as stated in section 26-301 of the Code of Laws. 2, the specific development plan is consistent with the intent and purpose of the outline development plan. 3, The proposed uses are consistent with those approved by the outline development plan. 4, all responding agencies have indicated that they can serve the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And 5, the specific development plan is in substantial compliance with the applicable standards set forth in the outline development plan and with the city's adopted design manuals with the following conditions. 1, minor site adjustments may be required to the civil construction plans to coordinate this development with surrounding infrastructure improvements and to match the approved SDP. 2, the associated subdivision plat, case number SUB-25-13, shall be recorded prior to recording of the subject SDP. 3, the developer shall enter into a development agreement with the city to be recorded with the county clerk and recorder prior to issuance of building permits. And 4, building permit submittals shall be consistent with the SDP.
Thank you. Now we'll have discussion on the motion. Commissioner Quinones, do you have any
Kristen, we need a second.
I think you need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Now we'll have discussion. Commissioner Quinones, any comments?
I have no comments.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Grady.
I have a brief comment. You know, I'll be completely honest. I felt that when reviewing this and reading the public comments, that I do have some concerns about the extent to which it meets the first SDP criteria, particularly with regard to the character of Clear Creek Crossing. It seems to me that the restaurants and the types of businesses that we've approved thus far in the development have somewhat of a different character than Dave & Buster's. I understand that the other criteria seems to clearly have been met, but the comments that we received, I do sympathize with some of the concerns that some of the community members have about how this development might fit in, with the types of businesses that are moving in there. So, I wanted to say that on the record. That being said, I don't think it's obviously everything else is in compliance, and I acknowledge that the applicant has, as stated in your presentation, has been flexible and accommodated the Clear Creek Crossing design and our insistence on pedestrian and bicycle and the infrastructure and look, and so I don't think it's enough for to oppose the development, but I do wanted to make that statement made. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore.
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Sparks.
I was actually looking forward to this when I saw that Dave & Buster's was looking at this site and seeing it on our agenda and something to review. I've been at the hospital a lot lately, and I was actually thinking that there really should be a place there that we can sort of wait and have fun and not dwell on all of the yuck, that's in our lives. So I'm actually looking forward to this.
Thank you. Any other comments that anybody thought of? Nope. All right. Commissioners, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item. Commissioner Moore. I didn't talk to you about this. Would you please introduce our second case?
Apologies, bear with me just a second. Okay. Case number ZOA-26-2. Test, test. The item under consideration is to amend Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to update the review process for qualifying affordable housing projects and to update accessory dwelling units, ADU, setback requirements for some zone districts to ensure compliance with state regulations. Notice for this public hearing was provided pursuant to the Code of Laws.
Thank you. Is there a staff presentation?
There is. I will present, and then Jana and I are both available for questions. So thanks, commissioners. Scott Cutler, senior planner. And just wanted to give some background on why we're coming back to Planning Commission with some additional code amendments related to housing. I think some members on this commission have seen previous efforts to amend our zoning code related to housing, and this is another push to get there in terms of meeting state regulations. But over the past few years, City Council has approved several zoning code amendments related to housing and accessory dwelling units to achieve local policy goals and also to comply with state law. To give some background, we originally approved ADU regulations back in 2022, and then we most recently updated those regulations in May of 2025 to align with state requirements, which removed owner occupancy requirements and then revised ADU size restrictions as well. In 2022, Colorado voters approved Prop 123, which is a statewide affordable housing fund, and City Council, through various resolutions, has approved our commitment to Prop 123 and also making us eligible for Prop 123 funds, most recently in October 2025 when they approved a resolution of support. Yes, I will do that. To establish an expedited review policy for qualifying affordable housing projects. That resolution also allowed staff to prepare internal policies and procedures approved by our director, Lauren Michalak, and formally approved by the Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, at the state. And the state has continued to pass a series of state housing laws, most recently in 2024 with the parking regulations that we looked at, the accessory dwelling units, and some others. And we were able to prepare for those by approving some code amendments. State agencies like DOLA and also the Colorado Energy Office use compliance determinations when scoring or awarding competitive funding. So for example, we apply for grant funding, and if we're compliant with state legislation, we get higher up on the priority list to actually receive state funding or grant funding. They really want to make sure that cities are moving forward towards compliance in good faith. And if we're not compliant, we risk being deprioritized or deemed ineligible for these funds. So we recently received a $4.5 million grant because we are in compliance from TOSI, and that is the Transit Oriented Communities Infrastructure Grant from the Colorado Energy Office. And to remain competitive for other grants, we recognize that there are two changes that need to be made in our zoning code, one related to ADUs and then one related to our expedited review for affordable housing in order to remain competitive for those funding opportunities. Something we already believe that we're doing, but just making sure that we're in alignment and moving all of that forward. So I'll briefly touch on, the accessory dwelling units part first, and then I'll move into the administrative site plan review, which is a requirement of the expedited review program. So like I said, we began regulating ADUs back in 2022. Those regulations are all within the zoning code. And then in May of 2025, City Council approved 3 code amendments to comply with House Bill 241152, which is the ADUs bill, removing the owner occupancy requirements, adjusting allowable size, and then allowing ADUs in planned developments. And we submitted in June of last year an ADU compliance report to DOLA, demonstrating the city's position that our ADU regulations were compliant with state law. DOLA disagreed slightly, and we were not fully in compliance with state law and gave us a compliance in progress status. There were 3 minor changes that need to be made related to the setbacks for attached ADUs, so an ADU that is attached to the main building, in 3 zone districts, R1A, A1, and A2. Together, these comprise a very small percentage of land in Wheat Ridge, only 12% of residential land or even less of total land. But basically, we have to make sure that the same rules that apply to a detached or freestanding ADU applies to an attached ADU. And so therefore, we have to change the setbacks for the attached to match the detached, which would be decreasing to 5 feet. But like I said, it's in a pretty small percentage of properties. And honestly, we don't see very many attached ADUs. They're much more challenging to build in terms of separating the two units than just building a detached structure. But still, we'd like to remain in compliance and competitive for ADU grant funding. So we're willing to make these changes and recommend these changes to Planning Commission and City Council. Like I said, it's a very minor change. We don't believe it will have impact to much of the city and to be honest, likely not result in any changes to what's already getting built out there. We are seeing a lot of detached ADUs, but not so much on the detached. So we're proposing to add a footnote in the zoning code that basically says if you're building an attached ADU, this is your setback, which will match the detached. And then the second part is the administrative site plan review. So Proposition 123 requires participating jurisdictions like Wheat Ridge to implement an expedited review process, or what we're calling the fast track process, for qualifying affordable housing projects. So in fall of 2025, City Council approved a resolution of support authorizing staff to establish this expedited review policy consistent with state requirements. We've conducted a review of the zoning code, and we've identified one minor code amendment necessary to ensure that all site plans for qualifying affordable projects can be reviewed within the expedited timelines, 90 days, and have an administrative approval process, which means not going to public hearings. So we review site plans under 3 application names. Planning Commission sees one of them, sometimes 2 of them, specific development plans, which you just approved tonight. That's one way that Planning Commission might review a housing-related site plan, in this case an SDP. There's the administrative site plans, which is the vast majority of our residential approvals. And then there's a third one, which you may have never seen, but it's called a planned building group. And that's related to if you have multiple apartment buildings on one property in a lower density zone, it has to go to a public hearing. Each is basically comprised of the same content. It's a site plan, landscape plan, review of architecture, but the underlying zoning of the property determines which application is actually used. Like I said, the majority fall into that site plan category, where the development is a permitted use, or what we call a use by right. So the state law requires that our site plan review of any type, SDP, site plan, or planned building group, for qualifying affordable housing projects must be an administrative approval, meaning that no public hearings are required. This means that once a use is allowed by the zoning, the project approval focuses on code compliance rather than a discretionary public hearing review. That allows for predictability and also a faster overall approval. So we recognize that, again, this is a pretty minor change. Most affordable housing developments will be located in mixed-use zones. For example, the development at 44th and Wadsworth, which is based on their location and densities. It's unlikely, but still possible, that an SDP or a PBG may be necessary. And code changes are required to ensure that any affordable housing development in those types of site plans can still be expedited and approved administratively. First thing we need to do, though, is we need to define in the code what qualifying affordable actually means. And that's going to align with DOLA's definition, which is basically half of the units in a building or a development are affordable. And then there's area median income, or AMI, regulations that define how affordable they might be. It's usually higher for homeownership and lower for rental. We'll also need to revise our plan development regulations to exempt the SDPs containing qualifying affordable housing from Planning Commission hearings, and same for PBGs. For a site that has more than 4 buildings, if it has qualifying affordable, it would also be exempt from Planning Commission review. And we'll have to update our review process chart as well. So we also don't have any concerns with this impact. Site plan review is already administrative review for the vast majority of residential projects in the city, and affordable housing projects in a plan development or a PBG will be rare, code will retain public hearings for the zone change process. So if someone needed to rezone to plan development, there would still be public hearings for the actual zone change. It's just wouldn't have to go back to a public hearing to actually approve the design of the building. What Planning Commission and City Council would be voting on is the use, and then once that's established, it's permitted and no more public hearings are required. So happy to answer any questions. I think Janet can probably answer some more questions about the grant funding and eligibility, but yeah, thank you.
Do we have anybody on Zoom that wants to speak to this?
Nobody.
Okay. Do we have any questions from commissioners? We'll start with Commissioner Quinones.
I do have a question. As I was reviewing everything, I totally get the aspect of having the attached ADUs mimic the detached ones. When it came to the administrative site plan review, that all seemed so natural for me that I don't really understand why we would oppose this. Like, what about it makes it, like, what would be the opposition of like, why would we not approve this? Like, I really don't understand it. To me, it just looks like we're just expediting something, and I don't really know where the risk would actually be.
I guess there could be a situation where Planning Commission wants to retain their right to vote on something. But, you know, as long as it's meeting the requirements of the zoning, staff will recommend approval. So in this case, removing that risk and the length of time from the process is why we're recommending this. But like I said, that's maybe the biggest scenario where a Planning Commission may want to retain their ability to vote on these limited set of projects.
Commissioner Gravy.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a somewhat amusing position to be in, to be voting on our, reducing our role in this particular development. But I do think you have to look at these things individually. And of course, with affordable housing developments, these kind of projects, there's enough obstacles that they have to overcome to come to fruition. And I think it's a sensible change. And as you indicated, probably not going to affect a large number of it's not like it's likely that we would see many of these types of projects, at least if history is an indication. Quick question about your presentation and the TOC grant that the city was awarded. Are you able to provide any more information about what that might be used for, timelines, or anything like that? Or is it too fresh, or is that too off topic? But it did pique my interest.
Sorry, my mic was giving me trouble there. Yeah, no, we can shed some light on that. We applied for a TOCI grant or TOCI grant on behalf of Foothills Regional Housing for their Ridge Road project at the old Ridge Home site. The project costs have kind of blown up. I mean, first they had a whole lot of remediation that they had to do, and they expected some of it, but I think it even got more out of hand than expected cost-wise. And so this TOCI grant will help with the public infrastructure around the perimeter of the site. So it will include sidewalks, some of the main lines on the utilities and that sort of thing. Really, most everything going into the right-of-way. And then it will also help cover the cost of that intersection there at Miller and Ridge Road, where there's the train on the south side. That signal will have to move slightly, which it will really, really drive up costs. And so we're very fortunate that we were awarded this grant so that we can make sure that the project does not fall apart due to it being financially infeasible. And this will really ensure the success of this affordable housing project.
Thank you. I think I'll just finish by, acknowledging, as I think I and others have done in the past, that, it seems to me that the city has been quite proactive on anticipating and responding to the changes that are happening, on the state level with regard to, housing and transit, these things that have really been quite disruptive for a lot of communities, but it seems like Wheat Ridge has, taken a very kind of can-do and proactive attitude about it. And it's refreshing to see that. And, I think the city, I think it makes the city, come off as very kind of forward-looking. And, I appreciate it. So, thank you.
Commissioner Moore.
Don't really have any questions, but if I can make a comment now, or do we want to wait? Can do.
Commissioner Sparks.
Yes, I would like to say that I would not want you to miss out on $1 million+ from any state grants in the future. And if this is what the state wishes, even though it would take some authority from the board, if it makes sense to the state, then it makes sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners that have arisen? All right. I will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws, supporting the compliance with state legislation regarding housing supportive code amendments to remain eligible for state funding opportunities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comments regarding this before we vote? Mr. Moore, Commissioner Moore.
I guess I wanted to say, Scott, thanks for the presentation. Thanks to staff for doing this. I think this is a great work. I was actually kind of excited about what's going on over there on Ridge, and to hear that it was maybe running into some problems and impossibilities. Being able to jump on this, I'm sure it was tedious. So thanks everybody for doing it.
All right, commissioners, please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, and moving along for our third hearing, Commissioner Gravy will introduce.
Happy to. Next item is an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to impose zoning limitations on the keeping of small animals.
Thank you, Commissioner Gravy. For the public testimony, I don't see anybody in chambers. Is there anybody on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay, great. May we have a presentation from staff?
Yes, thank you. We have Marianne Schilling, our Assistant City Manager, here to give this presentation tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. So last year, City Council requested updates on several animal-related provisions in the municipal code. Staff reviewed those proposed changes with City Council during study sessions on June 2nd and September 15th of last year. And at that time, City Council did provide consensus to move forward with about 20 code amendments, 2 of which do affect the zoning code. So one is related to swine, one is related to roosters. So with the direction provided by Council, staff have prepared an ordinance amending Chapter 26. Should the Planning Commission recommend approval, this ordinance will be presented alongside, presented to City Council alongside updates to Chapter 4 of the code, which is animals. So we'll start off with swine. There are 2 code provisions, thank you, that relate to the keeping of swine in Wheat Ridge. We have Section 26-204 of the Municipal Code, which currently permits the keeping of swine on property zoned Agriculture 2, A2, as part of the primary general farming use. It's also in Section 4-14 of the code, which is exotic or wild animals, and classifies and permits swine as domestic livestock animals. So despite this allowance, the keeping of swine may create odor, sanitation, and other nuisance issues that may be incompatible with the character of a modern suburban community. So because of that, City Council did direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending Chapter 26 to prohibit the keeping of swine in the city of Wheat Ridge. It should be noted that our community service officers are not aware of any current swine in the city, so we don't anticipate any pushback from the community on this item. Moving on to roosters in the city. The municipal code actually does not currently mention the word rooster, which has created some confusion in the past. In section 26-606, it does permit poultry. And then in section 4-14, it permits certain domesticated animals such as farm birds, which does also include poultry. So additionally, neither code section differentiates roosters and hens. Both are poultry, so both are deemed to be permitted. And while roosters may benefit from urban farming, they can also create some nuisances from our neighboring properties due to the tendency to crow. And the city does receive occasional complaints, most often when roosters violate these noise ordinances and other provisions to the municipal code. So although our staff and our community service officers are experienced in addressing rooster-related concerns, the city has received feedback that the city code does lack clarity regarding roosters. So to address these concerns, City Council on September 15th did direct staff to allow up to one rooster per property in residential and agricultural zones under 1 acre in size, and up to 3 roosters per property in residential and agricultural zones in 1 acre or larger. So we are seeking your approval to move forward with the aforementioned amendments in Chapter 26 regarding wine and roosters, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioner Sparks, I'll start with you.
First, I am very amused. My best friend actually did have chickens and a rooster on her property in the city of Wheat Ridge and got calls on the rooster quite frequently. There was some comment about, like when dogs bark, they have like a system in place to help them. It kind of alluded to the fact that they have that for roosters. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, they're called crow collars. And they help with the noise mitigation as best as they can. But they are treated by our community service officers similar to barking dogs in the way that it's sort of not necessarily always a noise violation as much as it's sort of like an expectation of reasonability with what you can expect from crowing or barking.
Commissioner Moore.
No questions.
Commissioner Graby.
No questions.
Commissioner Quinones.
I have a question. Do we have individuals in residential areas in less than 1 acre with more than one rooster?
We don't currently track it. You don't have to get a permit for it. So we don't have, numbers on staff.
Okay.
But colloquially, yes, we do.
Okay, so what happens once we pass this?
Right now, we do have an example in the city where I guess not the example I'm thinking of, actually, they used to have 3, but now they have 1. So my understanding is that they would likely be able to maintain their roosters, but then as the roosters pass, they wouldn't be able to substitute those roosters.
Okay. Go Roosters.
So was there recently a study session about this later than September? I seem to recall seeing people coming to chambers at City Council to argue in favor of passing this. Am I correct on
It was
that?
on September 15th.
That was September
Rooster Night.
15th. Wow, time flies. So how many properties in Wheat Ridge are larger than 1 acre that would have roosters? There can't be that many left, can there?
Going back to the table in the last item, we have very little agricultural, larger than 1 acre, residential properties within the city, so it would be a very small percentage.
Okay. And I do know in my neighborhood of at least 2 houses that have chickens. And I was talking to the homeowner because I knew this was coming up, and I was asking her about roosters. And she had roosters, and they were a rooster. And she had to get rid of it because it was crowing all the time. And that would be my concern. I mean, I know you receive complaints and animal control comes out, and what, do they say? You get 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out? How do they police this?
Again, similar to how they would police dogs, where it would be iterative, so it wouldn't just be one time they would come. It would be kind of a longer term issue and something that wasn't being mitigated. Sometimes they'll request that folks bring their crows indoors for a certain amount of time, that they wear their crow collars, and they ask for support from the owners. But it depends on how often they're crowing, how loud it is, how disruptive it is. And so there's not really a one-size-fits-all solution to how our community service officers are recommending it, but the crow collars have been proven to be helpful.
You mean rooster collars?
They're called
Oh,
crow
they're
collars.
called crow collars. I was thinking of the
Well, they
black.
are for the roosters, yes.
Okay. So roosters in this report help. Of course, you need them to breed chickens, which would to me indicate, are you like limited to how many chickens you can have on less than an acre? Like, why would you need a rooster? I don't understand. If you're not in a position, I don't understand why we have to have roosters. I'm just worried about the noise. I know that if I had one next to my house, I would be really unhappy if I was awakened at 5:30 at the crack of dawn by a rooster.
Do you want me to take this one? Because I grew up on a chicken
Sure.
farm.
Please.
So roosters have a very large spike on the back of their hand, and they aggressively protect all of the hens under their control. There's a lot of predators that want to eat the hens, and then there's also predators that eat the eggs, and they're very clever, very, very clever. And so sometimes we had a situation where there were foxes, and the rooster would actually lead the hens up into the trees to protect them from those ground dwellers.
Thank you, Commissioner Sparks.
Of course.
I have no more questions. Commissioner Gravy.
Sorry, but your Chair of Disney's questions raised one for me just for clarification. And actually I have 2. But the first one, in terms of the noise, because we did have a situation in my neighborhood on my block where there was somebody had a rooster and a neighbor was upset about noise. So I do have, some sensitivity to that as well. And so just, if this moves forward and then you're allowed, explicitly allowed to have a rooster, how does that then factor in on potential noise complaints that still might come? Because obviously they're still going to make noise. And I know that how it's being handled now, but how is the relationship with noise complaints going to be handled differently, or is it going to be once this changes?
At this time, it wouldn't be handled differently. However, during the conversation on September 15th, we did get feedback from City Council that they'd be interested in updating the administrative hearing process to expedite the concerns when folks do have a code violation regarding noise and nuisance. That hasn't happened yet. We haven't had that discussion, but it is top of mind for council that there may be another tool in their toolkit to help to address these concerns more quickly.
Okay, so, similar to dogs that can be noisy, you can, allow people to have them, but there might still be challenges with noise if that happens. And then my other thought was, I thought the most, one of the more interesting lines here points out that all of our surrounding neighboring communities don't allow roosters. And, what was it about the city's decision that made us change course or, you know, go a different direction than all these neighboring communities and actually permit them.
Do you mean changing course in allowing or?
In allowing, because I mean, it says here that municipalities such as Lakewood, Golden, Arvada, Denver, and Edgewater, you know, unlike these so they're all allowed in them. Okay, so I misread that at first. Okay, so we're just actually going to be in line with our neighbors.
No, I think you read it right the first time. So unlike these cities.
So none of them
roosters
allow
are
it.
currently permitted in Wheat Ridge.
Right. So none of our neighbors allow it,
Yeah.
but we're going against the grain and allowing that.
We've always implicitly allowed it through the allowing poultry. So that hasn't changed. Now we're explicitly would be allowing roosters for properties of a certain size. I would, you know, say that city council was trying to maintain the urban agricultural roots and
Yeah.
felt like areas and lots of that size, it made sense. But I think that for our city council, there wasn't any perspective during the conversation where they felt like it was worth banning them completely.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks for walking through that with me.
Any other questions? Commissioner Moore?
All right. I promise we're going to get off this rooster thing here, because I do have a swine question. So to go back to Commissioner Gravy's comment, we have always allowed it because of the phrase poultry, rather than ripping the Band-Aid off and basically saying, no more, it's not going to happen. We're coming to a happy medium and saying it has to at least be policed. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would liken it to a barking dog, where you would say just because you have one neighbor that has a really loud barking dog doesn't mean that we should ban all barking dogs. That was the
I would hope
conversation
not.
that really came up during council meeting. Is, you know, one bad rooster shouldn't necessarily impact the ability to have a rooster for other rooster owners.
Okay. And my swine question, and pardon my ignorance, do we currently have a swine problem in Wheat Ridge, or is this more battening down the hatches here?
I'm not aware of an existing swine problem. Whether, please speak to it.
I will say that we do get inquiries, and the code is somewhat unclear.
Okay. I was curious how this came up, because it seems a little random, but perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you, commissioners. I will now entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the keeping of small animals and making conforming amendments therewith.
I have a second.
Second.
Any comments? Commissioner Gravy?
Quick one. You know, another thing that I've known, and just to follow up on conversation about why someone might have a rooster, you know, I've known people who have gotten chicks and you don't quite know when they arrive if it's going to be a hen or a rooster. And so then you raise these little cute little chicks and name them. And then one of them turns out to be a rooster. And a lot of urban, folks who have urban chickens then say, well, now I got to do something with this rooster, and so, and I do think that I will just say I do, as someone who, embraced the city's, urban agriculture reputation many years ago. It's comforting to see this carried forward and the city being bold enough to allow folks to, have something on their property that really is a element of sustainability and can be really beneficial in a lot of ways to people. So I commend this decision by council and the city.
Anyone else? Commissioners, please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank Thank you. Do we have any old business?
No old business, Madam Vice Chair.
Any new business?
I can go over a couple of items that you might find of interest. First, let's start with our dates. There will not be a Planning Commission meeting on March 5th. There are no items. And then on March 19th, we don't have any cases yet. However, I believe our cutoff here is in a few days, so we'll let you know.
We do have a meeting on March 5th? No.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. But maybe the 19th.
Possibly, although right now it doesn't look like it. Okay, so some of you may have heard, if you follow some of the council meetings, that one of the former city councilors, Janice Hoppy, has been newly elected as the city clerk. So we are very fortunate to have her in that role. Another update is the deconstruction of the American Motel. And also some of the portion of the main hospital buildings on the Lutheran site. You will begin to see the deconstruction of those over the next month or so. The Planning Commission appointments are being held on Monday evening, so that'll be coming up. And then at the next meeting, we will have our chair and vice chair appointments. Whether or not that's in March, we don't know. If we have a meeting, we can do that then. Otherwise, it'll probably be in April. All right, and then one kind of interesting thing, Parks and Community Development have a joint grant application in through the Jefferson County Open Space to acquire the remnant RTD parcel. And I kind of loosely call it a remnant. It was left over for possible future parking up by the Wheat Ridge Ward Station. Just north of that, there's a long skinny parcel, and it's just never had anything done with it. It was set aside some years ago when RTD acquired the land for future additional parking, but it does not appear that that's going to be needed. And so what they are looking for a grant for is for the city to purchase that land so that it could be turned into a green space and have a trail connection from one end to the other. So for instance, like from the parallel apartments over to the Ridge Ward Station. So that would be an improvement to the area. So I'll try and keep you posted on that one. And then otherwise, we've got 7 Brews open both on Wadsworth and Kipling, so grab a coffee. And then the Primrose daycare over in Clear Creek Crossing also got its CO. So everything's moving along swiftly. Those are my updates.
Do we have any commissioner updates? Commissioner Sparks?
As you may know, I am an engineer. We are currently celebrating Engineers Week until February 28th. This is a time where we spotlight the impact of our profession. We inspire the next generation of innovators and celebrate how engineering shapes our world.
Thank you. It's exciting. All right. If there are no more updates, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chair.
There's a
Second.
Vice Chair.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Well, I